Welcome to Investors Insights. Our topic today is the Great Reopening. I am joined today by my colleagues on the Portfolio Strategies team here at Five Plan Partners, Bobby Norman, Trey Booth, Adam Van Zant, and Ashley Page. I thoroughly enjoy working with them, and especially on these Monday mornings when we get into our heated debates and discussions to bring you the ideas and strategies that we're looking at. We named this vlog The Great Reopening because throughout history, Americans have always tried to find some way to summarize what they're going through. The Great Depression, the Great Recession. Some have tried during the pandemic to call it the Great Lockdown. But this morning, we wanted to call it the Great Reopening as we move forward with states opening back up and trying to see if people can get back to normal. So on that note, I want to get into the debate. And I'm first going to call on Trey Booth because, Trey, you came at us full steam this morning about last week's unemployment numbers.
Yeah, Greg. So on Friday, the BLS reported that a little over 20 million Americans lost their jobs month over month for the month of April. That is the worst job loss, I believe, on record, pushing the unemployment rate to north of 14%. What was interesting, though, as part of that is that 17 million, roughly, of the 20 million believe that they will be rehired. And so what is important about that number is that the BLS number for the month is, of course, backwards looking, and it's delayed by a few weeks. Each Thursday, we get the unemployment data, the number of new claims filing for unemployment. That's more of an accurate assessment of where things stand now. And so if those 17 million people who believe they will be rehired are being rehired because we are going through this reopening process, we should see that unemployment claims on Thursday, that number should start to drop. We've spent tens of or hundreds of billions of dollars on PPP to give businesses funding to rehire employees. That's two layers of that have been put into place. We are now opening up states' economies. So this Thursday's jobs information is extremely pivotal because it should reflect the positive moves that have been making. And if we see that number stay stubbornly high, that's probably a bad indicator that these 17 million people who believe they are going to be rehired will be rehired. There are certain businesses that will just never come back, and these people believe that they will be rehired. It's hard to be rehired by a company that isn't there anymore. And so I think this Thursday's number will be possibly the most important to watch and how the market reacts to that. And so that will have a huge impact on people's portfolios that are invested in the equity markets, the fixed income markets, kind of across the board. Is this reopening? How is it working? Are people actually being rehired? So that's something we're going to have to watch.
Well, and that's one of the questions we're getting asked by email and dialogue with our clients. Hey, the stock market's going up, but unemployment is, going through the roof here. And so the great reopening of these states, also a phrase that is starting to become old in usage, is the new normal. We're nowhere near the new normal at this point. And so, there's a conflict there.
Exactly. I think that you've seen consumer sentiment expectations stay higher. And that might be reflected in the fact that of the 20 million people, again, that lost their jobs, 17 million think they're going to be rehired. So if you believe you're going to be rehired and you're just temporarily out of work, then your sentiment really doesn't drop as much. If those people start to realize that they are not going to be rehired, you could see a wave of negative sentiment hit this country. And you may not see a second wave of infections, but you could see a second wave of negative consumer sentiment. And that's something to watch because sentiment also impacts the stock market.
Very, very much so. And Bobby, talk about the reopening. You were very much on top of what's taking place there.
Yeah, Greg, we'll start following the success of the economy reopening very closely here. Good news is states with declining cases now make up 72% of U.S. GDP, so that's good. We'll follow in two things in particular. One, can the states reopen without a second wave? Just over the weekend, South Korea, who has already started reopening, saw a spike in their cases. And then also, with what Trey just talked about, will the furloughed workers be rehired now that the economy is coming back? Important fact here, because 94% of Americans live in a state that's going to be reopened by the end of the month. And so as the economy reopens, are we going to see these furloughed workers rehired? So the success of the market will greatly depend on the success of the reopening. And so as these economic reports start coming out, like Trey mentioned, we're going to be analyzing these very carefully, and we'll make sure and keep you informed because it has a big impact on the market.
Well, and that's the way we're lining up this vlog as well, as we had these discussions, because next, Ashley, I want you to talk about the government programs, because the market has really reacted favorably. There's an old term, the Fed is your friend, don't fight the trend. The Fed has put a lot of stimulus out there, and the market is also anticipating some of these programs to really help businesses. So tying back to what Trey said on unemployment, Bobby talking about reopening, will the stimulus also create a foundation for this economy and the markets? Talk about that.
Greg, it absolutely should. We've spent 2-3 weeks talking about the payroll protection program on this vlog, and we'll update viewers on that in a minute. We want to highlight the one you may not have followed as much, and that's the Main Street program, which is $600 billion with a B with the Federal Reserve, aiming also in employment. Now, what's great about that for your portfolio is, number one, that's just more people because a lot more public companies can participate in that.
Right.
Also, too, with the protection program on the second round, that's worked a lot more efficiently now that the Federal Reserve has come in with this yet another program. So not, at first we had the payroll protection program, Greg, to your point, being really the only main stimulus. Now it's two. We've got payroll protection plus the Main Street program of the Fed. That should really floor up these employment numbers.
Yeah, well, and everybody will be watching this closely. And so, folks, those of you viewing, we are putting the pieces of the puzzle together, because now we're looking at specific data to let us understand which direction this market could go in relation to the economy. Always keep in mind, though, the stock market will lead. It will anticipate versus the economy taking off. And so we're watching the market first to get indications, and then from there to look at the overall economy, which may have to pick up speed afterwards. And Adam, you did a great job just kind of emphasizing then, okay, you've got all these issues taking place, all this data, but what are a couple of things that our viewers really need to focus on?
Yeah, with all this data and the research that we look at, one big thing that we think that be important to look at is corporate guidance. Now, what do I mean by corporate guidance? That'll give us a better overall picture of public traded companies and where they are headed, where they stand right now, and could give us a bit better indicator for the not next couple months, but for the next couple quarters. And also to that point of how the consumer will react. Will the consumer come back into the retail markets, into other markets, and start to buy? And consumption is 67% of GDP. So I think that's important to keep in mind. And it might give us a better, more clarity of what the future will hold.
So that's excellent, Adam, and I really appreciate you summarizing that, because in this vlog we have covered unemployment. You need to watch those numbers this week. Number two, we have covered how the states are reopening and how businesses are responding to that. Number three, from the standpoint, is the stimulus for real, and does it really make a difference in keeping this economy strong and businesses moving forward? And number four, as we track publicly traded companies on their earnings, as well as are those consumers out there supporting this economy with confidence. We will keep you updated on our social media, as well as through our website, our vlogs. We're always available for email and one-on-one conversations. We thank you for taking time out of your day, and we're going to keep you updated as we start to participate in the great reopening. Have a great week.